I'm Laura Bennett, 38, and my heart pounds as I stand frozen in the dim hallway of our family's Back Bay brownstone, clutching a chipped porcelain vase, Mom's favorite, filled with wilting lilacs. Outside, Boston's November rain lashes the windows, a gray curtain blurring the cobblestone street. My sister Claire, who stole my fiancé 6 years ago, is due at Mom's funeral today. The thought of her smug face twists my stomach, but worse, I just overheard whispers from mourners downstairs. Claire's flaunting a diamond ring, and Ethan's empire might be crumbling. If I face her now, will I shatter? A scruffy stray dog's soulful eyes peer through the window, anchoring me. What does Claire want showing up here? Hope you enjoyed this story. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear where you're watching from. Now, let's continue with the story. The air in the brownstone feels heavy, thick with the scent of lilacs and loss. I set the vase on the mahogany table, its surface scratched from years of family dinners, Mom's laughter echoing over roast chicken, Claire's teenage sulks, Dad's gruff jokes. Now, Mom's gone, her pancreatic cancer stealing her in just months. I smooth my black dress, the fabric stiff against my skin, and glance at the mirror. My eyes, red-rimmed from sleepless nights, betray the calm I'm trying to project. I'm a marketing executive, used to pitching campaigns with confidence. But today, I'm unraveling. Downstairs, the murmur of mourners grows louder, their voices carrying through the creaky floorboards. I descend the staircase, each step a reminder of childhood races with Claire, her competitive streak always nipping at my heels. The living room is crowded with familiar faces. Neighbors from Newton, Mom's old teaching colleagues, their whispers like static. "Claire's coming," one says. "With him." My chest tightens. Ethan Caldwell, the tech millionaire who charmed me, proposed to me, then betrayed me with my own sister. 6 years ago, I walked away, rebuilt my life in Chicago. But today I'm back in Boston, and the past is clawing at me. I slip out the front door to escape the suffocating grief. The rain has slowed to a drizzle, slicking the cobblestones of Marlborough Street. Across the road, near a wrought iron fence, sits that stray dog I saw earlier. He's scrawny, his matted brown fur clinging to his ribs, but his eyes, deep, soulful brown, lock onto mine. He doesn't flinch, even as a car horn blares nearby. "Hey, buddy," I whisper, crouching. He tilts his head, ears perked, and for a moment the knot in my chest loosens. I name him Scout, after Mom's favorite book, To Kill a Mockingbird. He feels like a sign. But of what? The funeral home is a short walk, just past Boston Common, where the Freedom Trail's red bricks snake through wet grass. I pull my coat tighter, Scout trailing a few steps behind, his paws silent on the pavement. The city hums, tourists snapping photos, vendors hawking pretzels. But it's all muted, like I'm underwater. At the funeral home, a brick building with ivy creeping up its walls, I pause. Scout sits at the curb, watching me. "Stay safe, okay?" I say, though I'm not sure why. He's just a stray, yet his presence steadies me. Inside, the air smells of wax and roses, the casket draped in white flowers. My husband Daniel waits near the entrance, his steady hand finding mine. "You okay?" he asks, his voice low, warm. I nod, but my eyes dart to the door, dreading Claire's arrival. Daniel, a tech investor who's seen me through my darkest days, squeezes my hand. He's my rock, but even he can't shield me from this. The room fills. Mom's friend Grace Nguyen, HR director and my confidant, offers a tight hug, her jasmine perfume grounding me. Dad, Tom, shuffles in, his face pale, heart condition making him fragile. Then the door swings open, and there she is. Claire, 36, her blonde hair swept into a flawless updo, a diamond ring glinting on her finger. Ethan's beside her, his tailored suit screaming wealth, though his eyes look tired. The room hushes, mourners' glances darting between us. Claire's lips curve into a smile, but it's sharp, practiced. "Laura," she says, voice syrupy, "it's been too long." I force a nod, my throat tight. Daniel's grip steadies me, but my mind races. 6 years ago, Claire's betrayal gutted me. Finding her with Ethan in his seaport office, their kiss a blade to my heart. Now she's here, acting like we're just sisters catching up. I want to scream, but Mom's memory holds me back. She'd want peace, not a scene. Grace pulls me aside, her dark eyes flashing. Sophie's here, she whispers, nodding toward Ethan's sister, a socialite in a sleek black dress. Sophie's chatting with a mourner, but her glances at Claire seem uneasy. She said Ethan's company is in trouble, Grace adds. Big trouble? My pulse quickens. Ethan, the golden boy who built a tech empire, faltering? It shouldn't matter to me, but the idea sparks something. Curiosity, maybe vengeance. Scout's scruffy face flashes in my mind, his calm gaze a contrast to this chaos. I glance out the window, and there he is, curled up under a lamppost, watching. Why does he keep following me? And why does Sophie's unease about Claire feel like a warning? I turn back to the room, Claire's diamond catching the light, her laugh too loud. Something's off, and I need to know what. 6 years ago, I was 32, a marketing executive with a corner office in Boston's South End, my life buzzing with possibility. My loft overlooked the Charles River, its water glinting gold at sunset, sailboats bobbing like toys. I'd worked hard to get there, pitching campaigns for tech startups, my heels clicking confidently on polished floors, but nothing prepared me for Ethan Caldwell. I met him at a gala at the Fairmont Copley Plaza, the ballroom dripping with chandeliers, the air thick with champagne and ambition. I wore a navy gown, my dark hair swept up, feeling like I belonged among Boston's elite. Ethan, 34 then, stood out, tall with a tech millionaire's easy charm, his green eyes locking onto mine across the room. "Laura Bennett," he said, reading my name tag, his voice smooth as whiskey. "Tell me you're not here just for the shrimp cocktail." I laughed, caught off guard, and we talked for hours about his app empire, my love for branding, our shared obsession with late-night jazz. He asked me to dance, his hand warm on my waist, and I felt like I was floating. The gala faded. It was just us, the music, and the promise of something big. After, we grabbed cannolis at Mike's Pastry in the North End, the streets alive with laughter and Italian accents. We sat on a bench, powdered sugar dusting my dress, and he told me about his childhood in Brookline, his dad's failed hardware store, his drive to build something lasting. I opened up, too, about Mom's teaching career, Dad's gruff love, and Claire's competitive streak, always chasing my shadow. Ethan listened, really listened, and I thought, this is it. Our romance moved fast. Friday nights, we'd stroll the Freedom Trail, his arm around me, the red brick path winding past Paul Revere's house. We'd debate history over beers at the Bell in Hand, the oldest tavern in America, its wooden booths worn smooth by centuries. He'd tease me about my marketing jargon, and I'd fire back about his tech bro buzzwords. On weekends, we'd bike along the Charles, the river reflecting Boston's skyline, or catch Red Sox games at Fenway, cheering over hot dogs. Ethan's world dazzled me. Private dinners at Mistral, yacht parties in Boston Harbor, his penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows. But it was the quiet moments I loved most. Cooking pasta in my loft, his sleeves rolled up, laughing when sauce splattered his shirt. Mom adored him. Over Sunday brunch at her Newton home, lilacs on the table, she'd beam as Ethan charmed her with stories of his latest app launch. "He's a keeper, Laura," she'd whisper, squeezing my hand. Dad, skeptical of Ethan's flash, grunted approval when Ethan fixed his ancient laptop. Claire, my marketing associate sister, was trickier. At 30, she worked under me at our firm, her desk cluttered with coffee cups and Post-its. She'd always been intense, brighter lipstick, louder laughs, like she needed to outshine me. When I introduced Ethan at a team happy hour, her eyes lingered on him, her smile too wide. "Nice catch, sis," she said, but her tone felt off, like a note played wrong. Our engagement came a year later, on a yacht at sunset, Boston Harbor glowing orange. Ethan knelt, the diamond ring catching the light, and said, "Laura, you're my home. Marry me." I said yes, tears blurring the skyline. We celebrated at the Boston Public Library. Mom dreaming of a wedding there, its marble halls perfect for her vision of white roses and string quartets. She'd hug Ethan, calling him her future son, while Dad muttered about the cost. Claire threw us an engagement party in Mom's backyard, fairy lights strung across the oak trees. She wore a red dress, too tight, and toasted us with champagne, her words sweet but her eyes sharp. "To Laura and Ethan," she said, raising her glass. "The perfect couple." Ethan squeezed my hand, but I caught Claire watching him, her gaze lingering too long. That night, a stray dog wandered into the yard, scrawny and brown, his tail wagging despite his ribs showing. Mom tossed him a meatball, laughing. "Look at this little guy," she said, scratching his ears. He stayed, curling up by the patio, watching us with hopeful eyes. Claire rolled her eyes, calling him mangy, but I felt a pang for him. Mom named him Scout, after her favorite book, and started leaving food out. He'd show up daily, his trust growing, and I'd find myself looking for him, his presence oddly comforting. Ethan's proposal made headlines. Boston Magazine called it the tech romance of the year. Work got hectic, my campaigns landing bigger clients, but Ethan was my anchor. We'd plan our future over coffee at Tat Bakery, sketching dreams of a brownstone, kids, maybe a dog like Scout. I'd catch him staring at me, smiling, and think, this is forever. But Claire's behavior nagged at me. At work, she'd drop by my office, asking about Ethan's latest deal, her questions too pointed. "He's so busy," she'd say, twirling her hair. "Doesn't it bother you?" I'd brush it off, but her comments stuck, like pebbles in my shoe. Mom noticed too. Over tea at her favorite Beacon Hill cafe, she sipped chamomile and said, "Claire's always wanted what you have, Laura. Be careful." I laughed, saying Claire was just Claire, but Mom's eyes were serious. Scout, now a regular at Mom's, would greet me at her gate, his tail a blur. I'd sneak him bits of my scone, his warmth easing the unease I couldn't name. Ethan was perfect, wasn't he? Our love felt eternal, a story for the ages. But as summer faded, and Claire's glances at Ethan grew bolder, I started to wonder if perfection was just a pretty lie. The cracks started small, so subtle I almost missed them. Ethan began canceling our Friday dates at Fenway Park, claiming meetings that ran late. "It's just a big deal, Laura," he'd say over the phone, his voice distracted, the hum of a bar in the background. I'd sit in my South End loft, the Charles River dark outside, my takeout pad thai growing cold. I told myself it was normal. His app empire was exploding, investors circling like sharks. But his texts grew shorter, his kisses quicker, like he was slipping away. I'd scroll through our photos. Us at the North End, laughing over tiramisu or on his yacht, wind in my hair, and wonder where that Ethan went. At work, I buried myself in campaigns, my office a cocoon of spreadsheets and coffee cups. Claire, still my marketing associate, was thriving, her pitches sharper, her outfits bolder. She'd lean on my desk, asking about Ethan's latest trip to Silicon Valley, her red lipstick stark against her smile. "He's always gone, huh?" she'd say, her tone light but probing. I'd nod, forcing a laugh, but her words lingered, like a splinter I couldn't dig out. One afternoon, I found a sapphire earring on the passenger seat of Ethan's BMW parked outside his Seaport office. It wasn't mine. My stomach dropped, but when I showed him, he shrugged, tossing it in the glove box. "Claire asked me to pick her up last week. Her VW broke down. Must be hers." His eyes met mine, steady, but something flickered, like a shadow passing over water. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. We were planning a wedding, Mom already sketching table settings for the Boston Public Library. But doubt crept in, cold and heavy. Ethan started criticizing little things. My laugh was too loud at a client dinner. My habit of leaving dishes in the sink, annoying. He'd snap, then apologize, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a reflex than love. I'd lie awake, his penthouse ceiling fan whirring, wondering if I was imagining it. Was I too clingy, too paranoid? I started losing weight, my jeans loose, my reflection in the mirror, a stranger's. Mom saw it. Over tea at her Beacon Hill cafe, the windows fogged from autumn rain, she set down her cup and took my hand. "Laura, Claire's always been competitive," she said, her voice soft but firm. "She'd steal your toys, your friends, just to prove she could. Watch her with Ethan." I stared at the table, the wood grain blurring. "Mom, she's my sister," I said, but the words felt hollow. Mom's lilac perfume wrapped around me, and I wanted to crawl into her arms like I did as a kid. Instead, I sipped my tea, the chamomile bitter on my tongue. I started therapy with Dr. Emily Carter, a calm woman with a Back Bay office lined with books. "What's bringing you here, Laura?" she asked, her pen poised. I spilled it all. Ethan's distance, Claire's digs, my shrinking confidence. "I feel like I'm losing him," I admitted, my voice cracking. Or maybe myself. Dr. Emily nodded, her gray eyes kind. "Trust your instincts," she said. "They're trying to protect you." I left her office lighter, but the fear clung, like damp clothes after a storm. Scout became my unexpected ally. He'd started hanging around my office, a scruffy shadow near the South End's brownstones. I'd spot him by the dumpster, his brown fur matted, and toss him half my turkey sandwich. He'd eat slowly, eyes locked on mine, like he knew I needed him. One day I sat on the curb, rain misting my coat, and he curled up beside me, his warmth seeping through. "You get it, don't you?" I whispered, scratching his ears. He licked my hand, and I laughed, the sound startling me. Scout's trust, so freely given, felt like a lifeline. Grace Nguyen, my HR director friend, noticed my unease too. Over drinks at a South End bar, its brick walls lit by Edison bulbs, she leaned in, her jasmine perfume sharp. "Laura, you're not yourself," she said, swirling her gin. "Is it Ethan or Claire?" I hesitated, then told her about the earring, Ethan's late nights, Claire's smirks. Grace's eyes narrowed. "That earring didn't fall there by accident," she said. "Talk to Ethan, really talk." I nodded, but my stomach churned. What if the truth was worse than the doubt? That night, Ethan called from New York, his voice muffled, a woman's laugh in the background. "Who's that?" I asked, my heart racing. "Just the TV," he said, too quick. "Laura, I'm swamped. Can we talk tomorrow?" The line went dead, and I sat on my couch, the Charles River black outside, my engagement ring heavy on my finger. Scout's hopeful eyes flashed in my mind, his tail wagging despite his hunger. I wanted to be that strong, to trust my gut. But as Ethan's late-night calls grew frequent, and Claire's glances at work sharper, I knew something was breaking, and I wasn't sure I could stop it. I stood in the glass-walled lobby of Ethan's Seaport office, my heels sinking into the plush carpet, my heart a drumbeat in my chest. It was a Friday evening, the Boston skyline glittering through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the harbor's lights dancing on the water. I'd planned to surprise Ethan with takeout from our favorite North End spot, pesto linguine still warm in its foil container, hoping to steal a moment amid his endless meetings. My engagement ring caught the elevator's glow as I rode to the top floor, my reflection pale in the mirrored walls. I'd been ignoring the signs, his clipped text, the sapphire earring, Claire's smug glances. But tonight, I wanted us back, the Laura and Ethan who laughed over cannolis and dreamed of forever. The office was dark, save for a sliver of light under Ethan's door. I pushed it open, the takeout bag crinkling in my hand, and froze. There they were, Ethan and Claire, tangled in an embrace, her arms around his neck, his lips on hers. It wasn't a stolen kiss. It was practiced, intimate, like they'd done this 100 times. My sister's red dress clung to her, her blonde hair spilling over his suit jacket. The bag slipped from my hand, hitting the floor with a dull thud. Ethan's eyes snapped to mine, wide with panic. "Laura?" He stammered, stepping back. Claire's smirk faltered, but she didn't move, her hand still on his chest. 6 years, I said, my voice steady despite the fire in my throat. 6 years, Ethan, and you do this with her? Claire opened her mouth, but I cut her off. Just don't. I turned to her, my sister, the one who'd borrowed my clothes, shared my secrets, and now stolen my future. "How long, Claire?" She looked away, her diamond earrings, new, not the sapphire one, glinting. "A few months?" she muttered, barely audible. Ethan reached for me, but I stepped back, my ring suddenly heavy like it was burning my skin. I didn't cry. Not then. I walked out, the elevator's hum swallowing my ragged breaths. Outside, the seaport's glass towers loomed, cold and unyielding. I drove to Mom's Newton house, the lilac bushes dark in the night. She was in her kitchen, apron on, baking cookies despite the late hour. One look at my face, and she pulled me into a hug, her flour-dusted hands smudging my coat. "Oh, honey," she whispered as I told her everything. Ethan's betrayal, Claire's complicity. Dad in his armchair clenched his fists, his face red. "That bastard," he growled, but his voice cracked and he clutched his chest, his heart condition flaring. Mom shushed him, her eyes on me. "You're stronger than this, Laura," she said. "You always have been." We canceled the wedding that week. Mom called the Boston Public Library, her voice calm as she explained to vendors. I sent Ethan's ring back via his doorman, a kid in a too-big uniform who looked sorry for me. I learned Claire had moved into Ethan's penthouse, her clothes already in his closet, like she'd been waiting for my spot. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd imagined. Not just Ethan's, but Claire's, my sister, my blood. Grace, my HR friend, came over with wine and takeout, her jasmine perfume mixing with the pizza's grease. "You deserve better," she said, squeezing my hand. "Let them crash and burn." But the hurt was a weight, pressing my ribs, stealing my breath. I couldn't stay in Boston, not with their faces haunting every corner. North End restaurants, the Freedom Trail, my own office where Claire still worked. I applied for a marketing director job in Chicago, a city far enough to start over. The offer came fast, a six-figure salary with a view of Lake Michigan. I packed my South End loft, the Charles River mocking me with its calm. Mom helped, folding my sweaters, her eyes red but her voice steady. "Chicago's a fresh start," she said. "You'll shine there." Dad, still shaken, hugged me awkwardly, his gruffness hiding worry. The day I left, I stood at South Station, my suitcases at my feet, the train's hum vibrating through me. Scout, that scruffy stray Mom had been feeding, appeared from nowhere, his brown eyes locked on mine. He'd followed me from the brownstone, his paws dirty from the city's grime. I knelt, scratching his ears, his tail thumping the pavement. "I can't take you, buddy," I whispered, my throat tight. A neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who'd seen me with Scout, approached. "I'm moving to Chicago next month," she said. "I'll keep him safe until you settle." I nodded, grateful, and slipped her my number. Scout licked my hand, and I walked to the train, his gaze burning into my back. Grace met me at the station, her hug fierce. "You're not running, Laura," she said. "You're rebuilding. I'll visit soon." I boarded the Amtrak, Boston's skyline fading as we pulled away. The hurt was still there, raw and sharp, but so was something else. A spark of defiance, a need to prove I was more than this betrayal. Chicago waited, a blank page, and I clung to the image of Scout's hopeful eyes, promising myself I'd find my way. Chicago hit me like a gust off Lake Michigan, brash, cold, and unrelenting. I moved into a sterile loop apartment, all glass and steel, with a view of skyscrapers that felt both thrilling and lonely. My new job as marketing director kept me busy, my days filled with boardroom pitches and late-night emails. I'd walk to work along Michigan Avenue, the Art Institute's bronze lions staring down, their stoic faces a reminder I was starting over. But at night, in my bare apartment, the silence was deafening. I'd scroll through old photos, me and Ethan on the Charles River, Mom's smile at brunch, and the ache would creep back. Claire's betrayal, a wound that wouldn't heal. I threw myself into work, landing a campaign for a major retailer, my name in industry blogs. But success didn't fill the void. I'd sit by my window, Lake Michigan's waves crashing below, and feel like I was drowning. I missed Boston's cobblestones, Mom's lilac-scented hugs, even Scout's scruffy presence. I'd call Mom weekly, her voice bright despite her fatigue, but she'd dodge questions about Claire. "Focus on you, Laura," she'd say. Dad, gruffer than ever, muttered about his heart meds, avoiding Claire's name. I didn't ask, but I saw their wedding in Boston Magazine. Claire, in a designer gown, Ethan's arm around her, their smiles polished. It hurt, like salt in a cut. But I couldn't look away. Grace saved me from spiraling. She flew to Chicago 3 months in, dragging me to a jazz club in Wicker Park, its dim lights and saxophone riffs thawing my numbness. Over martinis, she introduced me to her book club friends, Leela, a chatty lawyer, and Sam, a quiet chef, who welcomed me like I belonged. "You need people, Laura," Grace said, her jasmine perfume sharp, not just spreadsheets. I laughed, the sound rusty, but real. That night, dancing to a trumpet solo, I felt a flicker of hope, like Chicago might become home. Then Scout came back. Mrs. Chen, the neighbor who'd taken him, called out of the blue. She'd moved to Chicago's Lincoln Park, a job transfer, and brought Scout along. "He's been waiting for you," she said. I drove to her brownstone, my heart racing, and there he was, scruffier maybe, but his brown eyes bright, tail wagging like a metronome. I knelt, letting him nuzzle my face, his fur damp from the lake breeze. "Hey, buddy," I whispered, tears pricking. Mrs. Chen handed me his leash, a frayed rope really, and I took him home. Scout curled up by my bed that night, his snores a soft rhythm, and for the first time in months, I slept through the night. Scout became my anchor, I'd walk him along Lake Michigan, his ears flapping as he chased gulls, tourists snapping photos of his goofy grin. I'd toss him bits of my bagel, his trust easing the loneliness. Work was still my escape, but Scout gave me purpose outside it. I'd tell him about my day, client wins, a new coffee shop on Randolph Street, and he'd listen, head tilted like he understood. Dr. Emily, my therapist, now on Zoom, noticed the change. "You sound lighter," she said, her gray eyes warm through the screen. "Scout's giving you something to care for. Now, what about caring for yourself?" She urged self-compassion. But the Boston Magazine spread still stung. Claire's diamond ring a taunt in my mind. I started exploring Chicago, Scout by my side. We'd wander Millennium Park, the bean's silver curves reflecting the skyline, or grab hot dogs at Portillo's, Scout waiting patiently for scraps. Grace joined us sometimes, teasing me about my dog obsession. Over lunch at a Riverwalk cafe, she leaned in, eyes gleaming. "I'm setting you up," she said. "A guy from my book club. He's different, Laura. Solid, not flashy like Ethan." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. Dating felt impossible, the betrayal still raw. "I'm not ready," I said, but Grace waved me off. "You'll like him. Trust me." That night, I sat with Scout, Lake Michigan dark outside my window. I scratched his ears, his warmth grounding me. Claire and Ethan's wedding photos flashed in my mind, their happiness a lie I couldn't unsee. But Chicago was my new dawn and Scout was my light. Grace's mystery man loomed, a question mark. But for now, I had Scout, my job, and a city to make my own. I wasn't healed, not yet, but I was moving forward, one step at a time. Chicago had started to feel like mine, with Scout by my side and the loop's rhythm in my veins. But at a tech conference in San Francisco, standing in a cavernous Moscone Center ballroom, I felt out of place among the buzz of startups and venture capital. My navy blazer and heels were sharp, my marketing director badge gleaming. But inside, I was still the Laura who'd caught Ethan kissing Claire. My trust and love frayed. I was there to pitch our firm's campaign for a fintech client, my slides polished, my voice steady. Yet the crowd's chatter about valuations, AI disruption, felt like a language I was only half fluent in. That's when I met Daniel Harper. He was 40, a tech investor with a quiet presence, standing by a coffee station in a gray suit that fit like it was an afterthought. His dark hair was slightly mussed, his brown eyes warm but guarded. I'd spilled my latte, cursing under my breath, and he handed me a napkin, his smile small but genuine. "Rough morning?" he asked, his voice low, Midwestern. I laughed, embarrassed, and we started talking about my campaign, his investments, and somehow, Chicago's best pizza. "Deep dish is overrated," he said, deadpan. "Give me tavern style any day." I argued back, defending Lou Malnati's, and for the first time that day, I relaxed. Daniel wasn't flashy like Ethan, no Rolex, no tech bro swagger. He listened, really listened, asking about my firm's branding strategy with a curiosity that disarmed me. We swapped emails, promising to connect over marketing trends. But I didn't expect much. Back in Chicago, Grace pounced, her HR instincts sharp. Over lunch at a Riverwalk cafe, the water sparkling under June's sun, she grinned. "Daniel Harper, huh? He's into you, Laura." I rolled my eyes, slicing my salad. "He's just being polite." But Grace's smirk said she knew better. "He's solid, not like that snake Ethan," she added, her jasmine perfume sharp. I changed the subject, but Daniel's email arrived that night, asking for my take on a startup's pitch deck. I replied, and soon we were trading messages, his dry humor sneaking through. Our first date was at a Wicker Park bistro, its brick walls lit by candles. I wore a green dress, my nerves jangling, Scout's soulful eyes in my mind as I left him snoozing on my couch. Daniel was already there, nursing a beer, his tie loosened. We talked easily about my move from Boston, his divorce 5 years ago from a wife who'd cheated. "It gutted me," he admitted, his voice steady but raw. "But you rebuild, you know?" I nodded, my throat tight, Ethan and Claire's betrayal still a bruise. When he mentioned love, how he still believed in it, I froze, my fork clattering. "Sorry," I said, my voice shaky. "I'm not there yet." Daniel's eyes softened. "No rush, Laura, I'm not going anywhere." His calm thawed me, and we lingered over dessert, sharing a creme brulee, the crack of its caramel top oddly satisfying. Back home, Scout curled up beside me, his warmth easing the panic that had flared. I replayed Daniel's words, his quiet strength a contrast to Ethan's dazzle. Could I trust this? Trust him? Dr. Emily, my therapist, weighed in on our next Zoom. "You're allowed to feel scared," she said, her gray eyes kind through the screen. "But Daniel sounds like he's meeting you where you are. That's rare." I nodded, scratching Scout's ears, his snores a soft hum. Chicago's skyline glittered outside, Lake Michigan a dark expanse, and I felt a shift. Small but real. The conference had another surprise. Sophie Caldwell, Ethan's sister, was there, her socialite polish intact in a cream blazer. We crossed paths at a panel, her smile tight. Over coffee, she dropped a bomb. Ethan's company was faltering, his latest app bleeding cash. "He's leveraged everything," she said, her voice low, conflicted. "Claire's not happy either." I sipped my latte, my pulse quickening. Ethan's empire, the one he'd built while breaking my heart, was cracking? It shouldn't matter, but it did. A spark of justice, maybe. Sophie's eyes darted like she'd said too much, and I wondered what she wasn't telling me. Back in Chicago, Daniel texted, asking for a second date, a walk along Lake Michigan with Scout. I said yes, my heart cautious but curious. Scout, sensing my mood, licked my hand, his tail thumping. Grace's words echoed, "He's different." As I fell asleep, Chicago's hum outside, I thought of Sophie's unease, Daniel's steady gaze, and Scout's loyal presence. Something was stirring, and I wasn't sure I was ready for where it might lead. Mom's call came on a crisp September morning, her voice thin over the phone. "Laura, it's pancreatic cancer," she said, matter of fact, like she was discussing dinner plans. I sat on my Chicago apartment floor, Scout's head in my lap, Lake Michigan gray outside. "I'm coming home," I said, my throat tight. Within days, I was back in Boston, the Back Bay brownstone's lilac scent hitting me like a memory. Mom, 65, looked smaller in her armchair, her skin pale, but her smile was the same, warm, stubborn. "Don't fuss," she said, waving off my worry. But the diagnosis was grim, months, maybe less. I took a leave from work, my Chicago life on pause, and moved into my childhood bedroom, its faded floral wallpaper a time capsule. Boston felt both familiar and foreign. The Charles River sparkled under autumn sun, but the city's charm couldn't soften the ache. I spent days with Mom, helping her sort photos, her hands trembling as she pointed to us as kids, Claire and me, pigtails flying at a Cape Cod beach. "You two were inseparable," she said, her voice soft. I nodded, but Claire's name stung. We hadn't spoken since the funeral home, her diamond ring a taunt in my memory. Mom sensed it, her eyes searching mine. "Laura, I want you to forgive her," she said one evening, lilacs on the table. "For me." I looked away, my chest tight. "I don't know if I can," I admitted. She squeezed my hand, her grip frail but fierce. "Try, honey. Life's too short." Dad, 68, was a wreck, his heart condition flaring under the stress. He'd snap over spilled coffee, then apologize, his gruffness crumbling. "She's all I've got," he muttered, rubbing his chest. I'd hug him, his flannel shirt rough, and pray his heart held out. Scout, my constant shadow, stayed close, curling up by Mom's bedside, his brown eyes watchful. She'd pat his scruffy fur, laughing softly. "This mutt's better company than most," she said, and I'd smile, grateful for his quiet loyalty. Scout seemed to know Mom was slipping, his warmth a balm for us both. Daniel flew in on weekends, his steady presence a lifeline. He'd bring takeout from the North End, sit with Mom, and listen to her stories of teaching, his patience endless. "She's tough," he told me, his hand on mine, Boston's skyline dark outside. "Like you." I leaned into him, his wool sweater soft, and felt something new, trust. Fragile, but growing. Grace visited too, her jasmine perfume filling the brownstone. "You're holding up," she said, hugging me. "But let me know when you need to scream." I laughed, the sound rare these days. One afternoon, I met Sophie Caldwell at a Beacon Hill cafe, her text unexpected. Ethan's sister looked tired, her designer scarf loose. Over lattes, she spilled more. Ethan's risky acquisitions, buying failing apps to prop up his empire, were tanking. He's in debt, Laura, she said, her voice low. Claire's miserable, but she won't leave him. I stirred my coffee, the spoon clinking. Why tell me? Was it guilt or something else? Sophie's eyes flicked to her phone, like she was hiding a secret, and I filed it away. My curiosity piqued. Mom's wish weighed on me. One night, as she napped, Scout at her feet, I found myself dialing Claire's number, my hands shaking. It was our first call in years. Laura? She answered, her voice hesitant, a bar's music faint behind her. Mom's dying, I said, blunt. She wants you here. Silence stretched, then a shaky, I'll come. I hung up, my heart racing. Would she show? Could I face her without breaking? Scout nudged my hand, his warmth grounding me, and I clung to Mom's words. Life's too short, days blurred, hospital visits, Mom's pain meds, Dad's angina scares. I'd walk Scout along the Charles River, its banks gold with fallen leaves, and think of Mom's childhood stories. Picnics by the water, Claire and me chasing ducks. She wants us whole, I told Scout, his ears perked. He licked my hand, and I wondered if forgiveness was possible, or if Claire's betrayal was a scar too deep. Daniel's text kept me sane, his dry humor a spark in the dark. You're stronger than you think, he wrote, and I wanted to believe him. As Mom weakened, her bedside crowded with lilacs, I held her hand, her skin paper thin. Scout lay by her, his snores soft, and I prayed Claire would come, for Mom's sake. Sophie's words about Ethan's collapse echoed, a strange irony to Claire's diamond-flaunting life. Something was shifting, and I wasn't sure where it would land. But with Scout's loyal gaze and Daniel's quiet strength, I felt ready to face it, whatever came next. The funeral home smelled of roses and wax, the air heavy with grief as I stood by Mom's casket, its white flowers stark against the polished wood. Boston's November rain tapped the windows, blurring the view of Boston Common outside. I was Laura Bennett, 38, and today was about saying goodbye to Mom, Margaret, the heart of our family. But my pulse raced, knowing Claire would walk through that door any moment. Her betrayal 6 years ago, stealing Ethan, my ex-fiancé, still a raw wound. I smoothed my black dress, my engagement ring from Daniel glinting, a reminder of the life I'd built in Chicago. Scout, the scruffy stray who'd become my shadow, sat outside under a lamppost, his soulful eyes watching through the glass, grounding me. The room buzzed with mourners, Mom's teaching colleagues, neighbors from Newton, their whispers like static. Claire's coming with Ethan, one said, and my stomach twisted. Daniel, my husband, stood beside me, his hand warm in mine. You've got this, he murmured, his tech investor calm steadying me. Grace Nguyen, my HR friend, hovered nearby, her jasmine perfume sharp, her dark eyes scanning the crowd. Dad, Tom, shuffled in, his face pale from his heart condition, his gruffness softened by grief. I braced myself, the weight of Mom's final wish to forgive Claire, pressing on me. The door swung open, and there she was. Claire, 36 in a sleek black coat, her blonde hair perfect, a diamond ring flashing on her finger. Ethan trailed her, his tailored suit crisp but his eyes tired. The tech millionaire's shine dulled. The room hushed, mourners' glances darting between us. Claire's lips curved into that practiced smile, but it faltered when she saw me. Laura? She said, her voice too bright. I'm so sorry about Mom. I nodded, my throat tight, Daniel's grip anchoring me. Ethan avoided my eyes, his hands in his pockets, and I wondered what Sophie, his sister, had meant about his company's troubles. Grace pulled me aside, her voice low. Sophie's over there, she said, nodding toward Ethan's sister, elegant in a navy dress, chatting with a mourner. She told me Ethan's bankrupt, like done. My pulse quickened. Ethan's empire, the one he'd built while breaking my heart, collapsing? It shouldn't matter, but it did. A flicker of justice in the chaos. Sophie glanced at Claire, her expression uneasy, and I filed it away, my curiosity sharp. The service began, the minister's voice droning about Mom's kindness, her years teaching. I barely heard him, my eyes on Claire, who sat stiffly, Ethan's arm around her like a prop. Dad clutched his program, his knuckles white, his breathing shallow. I leaned over, touching his arm. You okay? I whispered. He nodded, but his face was ashen, his heart condition a ticking bomb. Scout's presence outside, his fur wet from the drizzle, felt like a lifeline, his loyalty a contrast to this room's tension. Then it happened. As the minister finished, Claire approached me, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "Laura, can we talk?" she said, her voice low, but her eyes flicked to the crowd, always performing. I followed her to a side room, its walls lined with faded floral wallpaper, Daniel trailing us. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice steady despite the fire in my chest. Claire's smile vanished, replaced by a taunt. "You're alone here, Laura. No ring, no Ethan. Still bitter?" Her words cut, but before I could snap back, I felt Daniel's hand on my shoulder. "She's not alone," he said, calm but firm. "I'm her husband." Claire's face froze, her eyes darting to my ring, then to Daniel. Ethan, lingering in the doorway, paled, recognizing Daniel, his old rival who'd outbid him on a multi-million-dollar tech deal. The air crackled, but before I could savor it, a gasp broke the silence. Dad, standing nearby, clutched his chest, his face contorted. "Tom!" I shouted, rushing to him, Claire right behind me. We guided him to a chair, his breathing ragged. A mourner, a doctor, pushed through, checking his pulse. "It's angina," she said, her voice calm. "Stress-induced. He needs rest." Claire's hand shook as she held Dad's arm, her face pale, and for a moment I saw fear, not smugness. We moved Dad to a quiet room, the doctor monitoring him. Scout, still outside, pressed his nose to the window, his eyes locked on me. I knelt by Dad, his hand cold in mine. "I'm fine," he muttered, but his voice was weak. Claire hovered, her diamond ring absurd in the dim light. "Laura, I didn't mean," she started, but I cut her off. "Not now." My voice was ice, but Mom's wish echoed. Forgive her. Could I after this? As Dad stabilized, Sophie slipped into the room, her face tight. She pulled Grace aside, whispering, and I caught fragments. "Ethan's company. Bankruptcy filing." My heart raced. Ethan's downfall was real, and Claire's flaunting was a facade. Daniel squeezed my hand, his eyes steady, and Scout's gaze outside held me together. The funeral had become a firestorm, and I wasn't sure if peace with Claire was possible, but Mom's memory demanded I try. The days after Mom's funeral blurred, the Back Bay brownstone heavy with her absence. I stayed in Boston, sorting her things, the lilac scent lingering in every room. Scout trailed me, his scruffy fur brushing my legs, his brown eyes watchful as I packed Mom's books, her teaching awards. Her life. Daniel had returned to Chicago for work, his texts a steady hum. "You're doing great, Laura. Call me anytime." Dad, recovering from his angina scare, was quieter, his gruffness muted by grief. Claire hadn't reached out since the funeral, her taunt, "You're alone," still stinging. But Mom's wish to forgive her gnawed at me, a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. Then, one rainy afternoon, a knock came. I opened the door and there was Claire, alone, her blonde hair damp, no diamond ring in sight. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice small, not the syrupy tone from the funeral. I hesitated. Scout at my feet, his ears perked. "Fine," I said, stepping aside. She walked into the living room, her coat dripping, and sat on Mom's old couch, its floral pattern faded. Scout settled between us, his warmth a buffer, his tail still. The silence was thick, the rain's patter the only sound. "I'm sorry," Claire said finally, her eyes on her hands. "For Mom, for everything." I stared at her, my chest tight. "Everything?" I asked, my voice sharp. "You mean stealing Ethan? Moving into his penthouse before I'd even packed my bags?" Claire flinched, her face pale. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice cracking. "Ethan's controlling, the money, the lifestyle, it's all debt. We're drowning, Laura." Her words hit like a shockwave. The Claire I knew, flaunting diamonds, smirking at the funeral, was unraveling, her eyes red, her hands twisting. "I thought I won," she whispered. "But I'm trapped." I wanted to snap, to throw her betrayal back in her face, but Scout nudged my hand, his warmth calming me. Instead, I stood, needing air, and grabbed a box from Mom's desk. Inside was her journal, its leather cover worn, pages filled with her neat handwriting. "Look at this," I said, handing it to Claire. We sat, Scout between us, and read. Mom's words spilled out, hopes for our reconciliation, memories of us baking cookies, driving to Cape Cod, laughing over sunburns. My girls are my heart, she'd written. I dream they'll find each other again. My throat closed, tears burning. Claire's shoulders shook, a sob escaping. I miss her, she said, and for the first time I saw my sister, not the rival. We talked, haltingly at first. She told me about Ethan, his temper, his obsession with saving his company, how he'd pushed her to flaunt their perfect life. I thought it would hurt you, she admitted, her voice raw. I was so jealous, Laura. You always had it together, career, love, mom's pride. I stared at her, the words sinking in. Jealous? I'd spent years feeling less than her boldness, her beauty. Scout rested his head on my knee, his eyes steady, and I found my voice. You broke me, Claire, I said. But I'm not alone. I have Daniel, Scout, a life I built. She nodded, tears falling, and for a moment we were just sisters, grieving. I called Dr. Emily later, her Zoom window a lifeline. Claire's remorse feels real, I said, Scout snoring beside me, but can I trust it? Emily's gray eyes were kind. Remorse is a start, she said. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing peace. I nodded, Mom's journal on my lap, its pages a bridge. Sophie texted that evening, confirming Ethan's bankruptcy filing, his empire officially gone. The irony hit hard. Claire's boasts, her diamond ring, all built on sand. I didn't gloat, but it shifted something, a weight lifting. Claire stayed an hour, helping me pack Mom's things. We didn't hug, didn't erase the past, but we shared a memory. Mom's cookie recipe, the smell of vanilla in this house. Scout watched, his tail wagging once like he approved. As Claire left, she paused at the door. Can we talk again? She asked, her voice small. I nodded, not ready to forgive, but open to trying. Mom's journal lay open, her words a guide, and Scout's warmth reminded me I wasn't alone in this. Claire's life was crumbling, but so was my anger. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild something new. I'm Laura Bennett, 38, standing in the nursery of our Lincoln Park brownstone in Chicago. The walls freshly painted a soft blue, a crib tucked in the corner. Sunlight streams through the window, catching Lake Michigan's sparkle. And Scout, my scruffy stray-turned loyal companion, sprawls on the rug, his tail thumping lazily. I rest a hand on my belly, feeling the faint kick of the life growing inside me. Our baby, mine and Daniel's. A bittersweet joy without Mom to share it. It's been a year since her funeral, since Claire's confession cracked open the door to healing, and I'm finally home. Not just in Chicago, but in myself. The pregnancy was a surprise, discovered weeks after Mom's funeral. I'd been sorting her things in Boston, Scout at my feet, when nausea hit. A test confirmed it, and Daniel's face lit up when I told him, his steady arms wrapping around me. We're a family, he said, his voice thick, and I cried, thinking of Mom's lilac-scented hugs, her dream of grandchildren. Scout seemed to know, curling closer at night, his warmth easing my fears. Chicago's skyline, once cold, now felt like a promise. Lake Michigan's waves, the Art Institute's lions, the jazz clubs where I'd found my footing again. Claire's life unraveled as mine came together. She filed for divorce, leaving Ethan and his bankrupt empire. Sophie, his sister, visited me in Chicago, her designer scarf traded for jeans, her eyes tired but kind. Over coffee at a Riverwalk cafe, she told me Ethan had moved to a small town in Ohio, starting over with a modest coding job. He's humbled, she said almost sadly. Claire, meanwhile, rented a small apartment in Boston's South End, working at a boutique marketing firm. Her texts started coming, cautious at first, sharing memories of Mom's Cape Cod drives, then bolder, asking about my pregnancy. I'm trying, Laura, she wrote last week, and I replied, I know. We're not fully reconciled, but the door's open. Mom's journal a quiet guide. Daniel and I poured ourselves into the brownstone, renovating it with care. We sanded floors, painted walls, and built a nursery, Scout supervising with his goofy grin. Grace came by, her jasmine perfume filling the space, teasing us about baby names. Scout Jr., she quipped, tossing him a treat. I laughed, the sound easier now. Dr. Emily, my therapist, noted it on our last Zoom. "You're letting go," she said, her gray eyes warm, not of the pain, but of its hold. She was right. The betrayal, Ethan and Claire's kiss, still lingered, but it no longer defined me. I started a YouTube channel, sharing my story in snippets: Mom's love, Scout's loyalty, Claire's betrayal, and my journey to forgive. I filmed in our living room, Lake Michigan glinting behind me, Scout snoozing nearby. "This dog saved me," I said in my first video, stroking his fur. And my mom's wish for peace kept me going. The comments poured in, stories of pets, loss, and resilience from viewers in Seattle, London, even Tokyo. "Your story's mine," one wrote, and I cried, feeling Mom's presence. The channel grew, my marketing skills shaping it, but it was Scout's soulful eyes and Mom's wisdom that resonated. Dad's doing better, his heart condition managed with meds and fewer fights. He visits Chicago, grumbling about the cold but beaming at the nursery. "Your mom would love this," he said last month, his voice rough, and I hugged him, his flannel shirt familiar. Claire joined us once, awkward but trying, bringing a tiny onesie for the baby. We didn't talk about Ethan, but we laughed over Mom's cookie recipe, Scout begging for crumbs. It's not perfect, but it's a start. And Mom's journal, tucked on my shelf, reminds me to keep trying. As I stand in the nursery, Scout barks playfully, chasing a sunbeam. Daniel's at work, his tech investor life humming, but he'll be home soon, probably with takeout from our favorite Wicker Park bistro. I think of Sophie's visit, her words about Ethan's fall and Claire's modest new life. The past, Boston's cobblestones, Ethan's charm, Claire's smirk, feels distant, like a book I've closed. I'm not the Laura who caught them kissing, nor the one who fled to Chicago. I'm stronger, shaped by Scout's trust, Daniel's love, and Mom's dream of peace. I pick up my phone, filming a final YouTube clip. "Loss breaks us," I say, Scout's tail in frame. But love, human, animal, family, rebuilds us. Find your light wherever it is. I post it, knowing viewers will share their stories, connecting us across cities and scars. Scout nudges my hand, his bark joyful, and I smile, ready for this new chapter. Our baby, our home, our life. I hope you enjoyed this story. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss touching stories. Leave a like and then comment below what you thought of the emotional stories. See you in the next video.